Okay. Here we go. We are live. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Rockfin. On Rockfin, you could say what you want, but we're on YouTube as well. So we're gonna be playing YouTube friendly today and avoiding certain topics, unfortunately. But you know what? I think if our lovely guest Lydia is willing, we might have to do another episode that's Rockfin exclusive and talk about some of the other very, very important health issues going on concerning birth procedures in hospitals these days and how mothers and children are being treated in those hospitals. But today, we are talking with Lydia here, who is a former vegan turned non-vegan, of course, vegan turned ex-vegan, and she is a doula. She's practiced as a doula for quite a while now, and we're going to talk about something that most vegans, current vegans, don't want to talk about, something that almost all ex-vegans will be willing to talk about, some of them reluctantly, some of them less reluctantly, thankfully, and that is veganism and fertility, pregnancy, and raising vegan children. So we really appreciate all you guys hanging out. Guys, make sure to hit the thumbs up, share the videos, like the videos, and all that stuff. And welcome our guest Lydia here. Lydia, how's it going?
Good. It's great to be here. Hi, Tristan.
Yeah, really glad you came on. So you mentioned when we were talking via email for a little while. You were a vegan vegetarian for something like 20 years, right? I mean, I'd love to start out with kind of some backstory. How'd you get into vegetarianism, veganism, and give a little bit of backstory for the folks here so they can understand where you're coming from. How did you get into this?
Okay, I grew up on a dairy farm in New England. My grandmother had a farm, and I used to spend my summers helping her. And when I was about 15 years old, I helped birth the cows and got rather attached to them. And one of the male cows was sent off quite young to a veal farm. And I kind of blew everything well out of proportion. And it was also around the same time as the BSE scares in the UK, mad cow disease. Mm-hmm. And I just between those two things, I just decided I didn't want to eat meat anymore. And I told my mom that I'd made this decision, and she was kind of like, "No way." But over time working on her, she kind of thought maybe we could do it and still keep me healthy. So I went vegetarian, but I would eat lots of cottage cheese and lots of dairy. We had raw dairy, obviously, living in a farm. And, still eat cheese. Yeah. And that's the way it stayed until I was in college. And then I met a vegan, and kind of, when you meet someone that you respect, and you see they're doing something different, and you kind of give it a go. So I did, and I left college when I was 21, and then kind of started eating dairy again, and I think I very briefly ate fish for a little while. And then I got married to a man in England, and he was vegetarian. So became pretty committed to vegetarian then. And then I started having some like dietary issues and stuff. So I kind of watched a lot of YouTube videos and sort of thought that veganism might be the solution to that. So I went vegan again. And then about 3 years into that, I still wasn't feeling very well. I was having a lot of problems with grains. Got diagnosed with some digestive tract issues, celiac. And then instead of reintroducing meat, I just thought, oh well, I'll just drop it all, and then I went raw vegan. And I did that for about 5 years. I felt great for about 18 months, and then had the most incredible decline from there, to the point of after I had my first child, I was completely bedbound.
Wow.
My husband then started sticking me with B12 in the bottom, which got me walking again.
Wow.
And then
What did you ever think about, like when you got bedbound and you're getting B12 shots and you feel a little better? Did it ever occur to you, like maybe I should just eat some animal foods? Maybe I should have some eggs, some fish, some meat?
it took 3 years. 3 years from that point to just do it. Yeah, it's the indoctrination, and we could sort of put ourselves, both my husband and I were vegan, so we kind of put ourselves out there. He had a YouTube channel about it, and you know, we done some health counseling. By then I was working as a doula, and I'd kind of like build myself as the doula for vegans, so it you know, there's this huge investment in staying involved in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think the vegans as a group, that they feel like it's a betrayal when someone leaves. So I knew that you know, that first bite of meat, that was essentially rejecting my friendship network that I had. And
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's like apostatizing, right? You know, you kicked out of the club. And yeah, I mean, I can imagine building, you know, an online presence, a business around marketing to veganism. It's not like your whole personality was about just marketing, but you know, I mean, that's your income depends on that. It's so hard to admit to ourselves like that we're wrong when our income depends on a belief, you know. Yeah, that's a difficult situation. So you mentioned earlier too, like just kind of going back to the beginning when you were 15 years old and that cow, you know, that calf, little bull calf was being sent off to a veal farm. Um, like, did you get into like feminism and stuff too at the time? Because I mean, that seems like a common path. You know, veganism, feminism, they're kind of like these rebellious things. I mean, your parents were dairy farmers. You know, you're going vegetarian. You're kind of going against the grain. Did you get into other kind of alternative ideas and like feminism and stuff at the time too?
I didn't early on. I had a really strong relationship with my mom, and she's not a feminist. So I think in terms of like the dogma of women's lib and stuff, I mean, my mom's not the most feminine person in the world. I don't know if she's that comfortable with her femininity, but I definitely got into like the divine feminine bit, which I think is
Yeah, like
different
kind of
from
like
like say
like
radical
new
feminism.
age, yeah, kind of like new age type
Yeah.
beliefs.
So
It
from
seems
like
that like the
college onward.
vegetarianism and veganism definitely kind of go hand in hand with that. And that kind of Eastern
Yeah.
mysticism, divine feminine, like, yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And which is, I mean, I kind of think it's crazy because I grew up as a Christian, but yeah, it was tempting for a while. Yeah. It goes with the doula world as well, the divine feminine.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And women's empowerment, women's liberation. You know, but I mean, at least the doula thing, it's not, you know, a lot of the women's lib stuff and feminism is like openly anti-natalist. And these doulas are like, you know, pro-family and pro-natalist. So yeah, wow. So, all right. So B12 injections, you're bedridden, B12 injections, but then it still took after that 3 more years until you hit a wall with it. And you mentioned like you're trying raw veganism. I think a lot of I mean, obviously you've paid attention to some of what's going on online since you mentioned your husband used to have an online presence or maybe still does. Um, a lot of the vegans now, since all these ex-vegans have come out the last few years, um, it used to be that they would just disappear, right? The vegan channels would just go away. They stopped talking about it. Now social media, you know, it seems to have evolved a little bit, changed a bit, and the ex-vegans now come out and talk about not being vegan anymore, and they kind of make a non-vegan apologetics, and it seems like the vegan crowd have kind of pre-anathematized the raw vegans, because they know that once you reach that raw vegan phase, you've only got so much longer until you hit the total dead end and leave the movement altogether. But it sounds like you got to the raw vegan phase, like, yeah, it was end stage veganism, exactly. So you reached end stage veganism, you get into raw veganism. Where else can you go from there? It's crazy. Like, just throwing this out there for the audience, and for the vegans watching. There are probably a lot of prominent vegan YouTubers watching this right now. I know some of you think you hate me, but we'll be friends later when you finally admit to yourself that you were wrong. But this is it's amazing that they've kind of like, if you're raw vegan, you did it wrong. But it seems like you were eating a lot of grains, you were eating all these vegan foods, and you couldn't digest them anymore. You got messed up from veganism. Raw veganism was this little oasis that like allowed you to maybe function a bit better for a little while, and then of course you hit a wall there. That seems to be the pattern. But the the veganevangelicals kind of, they twist it. They want to frame it in a different way. Do you think that's an accurate assessment of the vegan progression there?
Absolutely. And I used to say the same thing when I was vegan, and people were dropping out and say, oh, they must have, it's something they did. It's not something I'm doing. Yeah, it is accurate. I mean, I think we stopped being vegan in summer in 2018. And then we just went completely silent. My husband deleted his channel. And we moved at the time as well, so it was really easy to just go silent.
Nice. I mean, it takes guts. It takes guts to leave it. Did you get involved in any like animal rights activism, or was it mostly online stuff?
I didn't a whole lot get into it. I did some quiet activism. I worked for a university at the time that were doing experiments on animals, and had the opportunity to rehome some of the animals from their experiments. But I didn't go to protests or do any sort of. I never got involved in online stuff that much. I'm a pretty quiet person, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then those 3 years after the B12 shots start coming in, what else did you try in that period? How else did you do it wrong, as the the veganevangelicals who attack everybody would say?
Yeah. So we kind of persevered with the raw for a while. We tried. We were doing 80-10-10, which is like a very low fat, lots of fruit, but still some greens. And so when I started the B12 injections, we started doing some other supplements alongside with it. And I had been taking B12 before orally, but obviously wasn't absorbing it. So different. Sorry, I'm cold, so I'm having a little shiver. Different supplements. And we increased the fat that we were having, but we did it with seeds and mostly avocados and a little bit of seeds. We tried soaking seeds. We tried like massaging foods to sort of pre-digest them and all sorts of things like that. And like I worked with a medical medium practitioner for a while.
That celery juice lifestyle.
Yeah, and the celery juice did actually help to digest things a little bit, but eventually it was just everything was coming out as it went in, just like chewed up a bit. So like we knew there was a pretty serious problem. And then by this point my child was nearly 3 years old, and she'd sort of stopped growing. She had no hair. She had to have 5 of her teeth removed by the age of 2. Surgically removed. They were just coming through and like powder.
Dissolving. Dissolving.
And then she started. We were just going to leave them, but then she started getting infections. So.
Oh, poor child. Yeah. Oh, that must have been so scary. That must have been so hard.
It is, and when you're a parent, and like I was just sitting there going, something's not right, you know. Like I have lots of cousins, and so when I was growing up, there were always babies around, and I was just like, this is not how a 3-year-old is supposed to look.
Yeah. Yeah.
And searching for every, you know, we try all sorts of superfoods to try and get more into her diet. And it wasn't that she
Yeah.
wasn't eating, because like obviously everyone enjoys fruit. But yeah, it was mental. Absolutely mental.
I'm really glad that you're, you know, open to talk about this. I know it's probably not easy to talk about it. Well, and thank God that you finally realized this isn't working. This is ridiculous. This is stupid, and I got to stop this. What was that the last straw? Was like your daughter's health, your daughter's teeth, your child's teeth?
Yeah, that was the last straw. I went with my daughter to visit my mom and dad, and they, like, although they were always supportive, because they kind of like understood my health issues and why I wanted to go vegan. So
Yeah.
they would, you know, they were the ever patient parent. In some ways, I wish they'd just been like, stop being daft. But I guess
Did you tell them? Were you like telling them, yeah, this is helping me? I mean, you obviously convinced yourself that this was the right thing to
Yeah,
do. So did you find like you always had to be convincing other people that this is something that's right and good?
yeah, like constantly.
Hmm.
And yeah, so my parents were trying to be gentle and supportive, but they were really concerned about my daughter when we went to visit. And you know, my dad kept saying, but why? It's just a bit of butter, or it's just a bit of
Yeah.
milk. And yeah, so it was very shortly after that visit that I started introducing meat again.
Wow. And
And
what was
she
like, was
responded
there a
to it.
moment that you just made the decision where it's like, all right, I'm doing it. I'm done. I'm gonna have some meat. Can you even
Well,
remember?
so the reason I came to the States to visit my mom and dad was my mom was working with a CRA practitioner, and she wanted me to work with her to try and improve my health a little bit, because I was still having a lot of issues. I had a lot of fatigue, some heart issues. Like I had a constant dry cough,
Wow.
and then I was having issues with my kidneys. So I worked with her for 4 months, saw a huge improvement. And I was taking the supplements she was giving me. My mom said, don't ever look at the ingredients on the supplements, right? And then when I came back to England, I did look at the ingredients and the supplements, and it was all desiccated organ meats. And I had this moment, and I was like, oh no.
I'm not vegan anymore. Wow. All right. So you got like, I mean, I make a joke sometimes that, you know, to a vegan, that's kind of like, that's like a statutory rape or something, you know, it's like, you know, you literally like you're this doctor and then here, take these capsules. And I mean, that's amazing. So you actually, you got duped into getting healthy again and leaving veganism.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
God. Praise God. That's great.
So yeah,
Desiccated liver and yeah.
Yeah, it was like because it had like a hormonal. Basically, she diagnosed me with what's it called? Hypothalamic disorder. Which if you go and Google it, you'll find out there's only 2 real causes, and one is head trauma, which I had no history of head trauma, and the other is malnutrition.
Yep. Which
So
veganism is, and again, you're taking B12 injections, you're taking oral B12, and even some of these vegan doctors, like Dr. Greger, will admit these things are not very absorbable, right? Like you are not absorbing these things, and these supplemental forms of B12, however much they might help some people to avoid deficiencies for a certain period of time, like veganism really is full on malnutrition. We see this over and over again. You hit the wall, and what happens is your brain shrinks. B12 deficiency will literally shrink our brains. That's crazy. Wow.
Yep. So yeah, at that point I was just taking the supplements, but still eating a vegan diet, because I didn't even realize that supplements were from animals. And I was doing really well, so I sort of stopped taking the supplements and immediately got on well again. And then my daughter wasn't doing well, obviously, and we had our 4th miscarriage. So at that point, my husband looked at me. He had a friend who had already started eating meat, and he was doing really well on it. And it was lamb season, so he was like, right, we're going to the butcher's. And so we walked down the front street. We bought lamb chops from the butcher, and we came back, and I was like, I don't even know how to cook meat. I was 15 years old when I went vegetarian. I don't even know how to cook meat.
Like, what do I do with this?
I know, right? And he put butter in a pan, bit of salt and pepper, fried it up, and he sat me down, and I was like, at this point, I was crying. I was like, I can't do this. I'm eating an animal. He's like, you have to for a daughter. You have to for me, because you can't die. So I ate my first bite, and it was like an explosion went off in my head. It was just like, I'm never gonna forget that bite of meat.
Wow.
And he was sitting across the table from me, and he said, your face just flushed. He'd not seen color on my face in so long. And I was like bawling, like the tears coming down my face, but like feeling great. So we've never gone back. I think I've eaten meat at every meal since that day.
Can you digest other foods very well, or are you still kind of recovering your digestive abilities?
I'm still working on it. It's a lot better. I still eat a bit of fruit every now and then.
Nice.
I can still eat a little bit of veg with a meal, like to complement it.
Nice.
But I don't eat that much. Yeah. I couldn't digest dairy for a while, but now I can.
Raw dairy?
Yeah, raw dairy.
That's so cool. It's because most vegans, as you know, they'll have eggs first, and then they'll have a little salmon, and then they'll have, I don't know, that's usually eggs, salmon, maybe a little bit of milk, some cheese, and then like the last thing they'll have is meat. So that's, I'm always encouraging, when people reach out to me, I usually tell them, look, just go straight to have a steak. Get yourself like a New York strip or a ribeye. Get the fattiest looking steak you can find and eat that, because that's always going to be kind of the best, and you're going to get the best results from that as well. Wow, what a beautiful story. So, and then your daughter, obviously, that was the main focus there. Did she have some of that lamb as well?
She didn't. She was at nursery when we did that, and then I think we decided, I think within, was it the next day or the day after, we decided to introduce it to her. And I thought it was going to be hard because we had sort of indoctrinated her about animals being our friends. Like we had the whole V is for vegan book that we would read at bedtime and stuff like that. So,
I've got friends who they brainwashed their kids, and it took their kid like a year or so after they started eating meat to even start taking bites of it. It was so intense for some of the friends that we've got. I can relate.
We sat down and had a conversation about her, and we were like, and she was like, but friends are our animals, but we were like, yes, but we need to do this to be healthy. And so she gave it a go, and it tasted good to her. It tasted good to her, and she would do things like when I very quickly learned how to slow cook lamb, and just to have stews all the time. And people would come to the door to visit, and she'd run to the slow cooker and grab a bit of lamb and be like, "Would you like some lamb? It's so good."
Wow, that's so sweet. She knew how good it was for her. It's hard. It's really hard. Vegetarianism, you can do people do vegetarian their whole life. They usually end up, their favorite foods are cheese and milk. They eat so much, dairy, and they're able to live, pretty healthy lives, right? I mean, it's not, vegetarianism, totally doable. I don't think it's ideal. I think at least, fish, I mean, even like you look at like Orthodox monks, they have they have a lot of shellfish, fish all the time, dairy. I mean, depending on the region, lots of dairy. So it's like vegetarianism, totally doable, but like veganism, it is so objectively unhealthy. And there's so many ways that this can be shown. There's so many deficiencies, nutrient deficiencies that develop. This is not just anecdotal. This is completely, this is reality. This is why you never see any vegan culture in the history of mankind. But this is why cultures have been able to live on like a relatively vegetarian diet. Maybe not optimal health as a full vegetarian, even omitting fish and stuff. I think that's ridiculous. But yeah, veganism, even like your kid knew, your 3-year-old saw that lamb as like, something she wanted to share with everyone. Just like everyone needs to feel this, It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's funny because she's been eating meat for 2 years now, and she has days now where she doesn't want it so much. So I think there's still repercussions from it that we're working out. Like she's got real cravings for sugar, and some signs of some insulin resistance. So we're still working, on that. And her, she still hasn't had. She's starting to get her adult teeth in, so we're all waiting, like, okay. Yeah. But she's doing really well. She's filled out. She's awesome. Filling out. She's got hair. She went from having like no hair to just having this like huge curly headed mop.
Yeah. Do you guys do liver or anything? The kids
we do.
Love liver.
I love liver. She's not so keen on liver. My husband's not so keen on liver. But she likes kidneys, so we do kidneys.
Nice. That's a good one. A lot of fat in the kidney. And the kidneys have stuff that nothing else has. Yeah, for histamine too. Like they have DAO in them, which people take DAO pills, and it will actually block histamine's absorption in the gut. And so the kidneys are really good food to eat if you do have histamine issues, and especially long-term nutrient deficiencies. Have you ever tried? This might sound a little weird, but I remember all those like desiccated liver companies. They used to send us samples, right? And we just give them to our kids because I'd rather just eat fresh cooked liver. And our kids love. They take those desiccated liver capsules and they just chew on them. Your daughter might actually like that.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
But you have to be careful because then they see pills as something that they would just chew on, like something, like, oh, the pill, like it tastes good. So then they see other bottles of like whatever random supplements. They're like my boy the other day, there was like a bottle of Shilajit, and I was gonna take like some purified Shilajit. Shout out to, that's a good reason to shout out our sponsors, Choq, CHOQ. You guys make sure to hit up choq.com. Actually, we have right now. We still have it. Choq is keeping it up. We got 60% off. If you use the code BIG60, you can get 60% off store-wide. But I would suggest trying the purified Shilajit. I take it every day. I take the daily, the Shilajit, and the Tongkat Ali. I love all three of those in the morning. Take them fasted in the morning. But my boy, because they love those desiccated liver capsules, he was like, oh, let me try one of those. And he took the Shilajit, which just tastes like, I don't know, like sulfur or something. It's like really strong, bitter flavor, almost like a bitter herb. And he puts it in his mouth and chews on it. And he's just like, there's like the black stuff dripping out of his mouth. So you don't do that. You just swallow them. But yeah, check out choq.com. That's a sponsor. 60% off store-wide on the best adaptogens, quality, organic, natural supplements from Choq. And they're a solid company. And they like the work we do here. They're bigots like us. They're meat tards like us, as some of our vegan friends like to call us. But yeah. Anyways, the desiccated liver capsules. I think some kids really like those. Nice. So, daughter's doing better. You're doing better. You were the vegan doula. How did you get into the doula stuff? And how did the transition go from vegan doula to non-vegan doula? And then I want to get into the heart of the issue here, talking about veganism and fertility, pregnancy, postnatal, vegan babies. We already got into the health issues that you've seen in your own family, but I know you didn't just see this in your own family. So yeah, the doula angle is really important here, Lydia. How did you become a doula?
So I became a doula kind of when I was pregnant. I knew instinctually that there were a lot of problems with the medical system. Right from my first antenatal appointment, you know, I went in with my husband for our first appointment to book in, and they asked me all these questions which were really alienating. But the worst thing was when it came to asking about my husband's medical history, they were asking me the questions instead of him, and he was sitting right there. And when I would defer to him to answer the question, the midwife would like ignore him and go back to talking to me. And we got home, and my husband was like, "I've never experienced sexism before. That was weird." So right from that first appointment, we knew there were problems with the medical system, and I started delving quite deeply into birth. And we decided we wanted to have a free birth. Yeah.
So was that like at home, unassisted?
Yeah,
Just you and your family?
yeah. It didn't end up that way, but that was the intention, is to just have the baby. I felt like just my husband and I, our own. I felt like it, you know, we created the baby together, so it would be perfectly natural to birth that baby together and not have anyone else.
So people have done it for a long time. Yeah, you know, childbirth only recently became a standardized medical procedure. I mean, that's recent. It's not how it was for our great grandparents or great great grandparents. Hospital used to be a place you just go when you're sick, not when you're giving birth, not just for check-ins.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a disease process. It's a life process. So
well, some vegans might disagree. You know, that our antinatalist friends in the vegan community over there, vegan gains, people like that, they might disagree.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, we were at that point, we were doing raw veganism, so it wasn't like we were alien to doing something a bit different. So we did all the research about birth and the physiological processes of birth, and we read lots of stories from people who also free birth to give us, you know, so we could have confidence in the decisions we were making. You know, we did. I totally, if people resonate with the idea of free birth, I totally think they should go for it. You know, given a low risk pregnancy, if you're healthy and it's an idea that appeals to you, go for it. It's great. It was amazing.
Both our kids were born at home, like with, you know, our unassisted births at home. We're all about it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't always work out for everybody. Like sometimes women sometimes will start out at home and then end up going to the hospital if it's a long labor. But, you know, you don't always need to just, oh no, rush right to the hospital. That wasn't always standard. You know, this is not medical advice or whatever, since we're on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, our kids were born at home and no problems.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So my first was born at home, but we ended up calling out a midwife just because we weren't quite sure what was happening. Everything was fine, but we weren't quite sure what was happening. Anyway, the midwife came out and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's the baby's crowning." Yeah, so it's fine.
She's like, "Yeah, you're ready. Come on."
Yeah. So and then after she was born, I went ahead and formalized it, and I did a course on doula work, and I've done loads of courses since then. Yeah.
Nice.
So
That's awesome.
That was about 6 years ago that I finished my qualification, and yeah, started taking jobs, seeing lots of other women have babies, having. I've never actually, trying to think. I don't think I've ever actually worked from start to finish with a vegan family, but I've had lots of people contact me for advice online, and I've had lots of people worked with people at different stages in the process, but never anyone start to finish. But yeah, so I've seen some crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the veganism, I mean, maybe we could go from conception, fertility until, rearing children as a vegan. I mean, we already did hit a little bit on the child raising children as vegans, but what have you seen as far as veganism and fertility? You did mention several miscarriages that you unfortunately experienced yourself. Now, obviously you had health issues. Those definitely seem to be related and caused by veganism. But yeah, what else? What else have you seen? What should women think about, or maybe even husbands and their wives are staunch on being vegan? What should families consider if they're trying to get pregnant or conceive and they're in this vegan lifestyle?
Yep. So I start working with people sometimes during the fertility process. Maybe they've had a bit of some difficulty they've been trying to get pregnant and it hasn't happened for whatever reason. So what I do in that instance is I will get the parents to chart, well, the mother to chart really, which is really simple. You take your temperature every day and record it on a chart, and then the mother would also check her cervical mucus every day and keep a record of the consistency of the cervical fluid. And the point of that is that you're trying to target exactly when your fertile window is, because a woman only ovulates one day every month, sorry. And for about 5 days before the day she ovulates, there's the cervical mucus changes consistency to support the life of the sperm. And so if you're not having intercourse during those 6 days, you won't get pregnant.
Okay.
So I'll chart with try and get both parents involved, but it's mostly work with the mother. The interesting thing about these charts is that you can see a lot of other health markers just by those two things that you're looking at. So for instance, if a woman's temperature is lower than normal, or lower than averages for the population, or if there's on the day she ovulates, there should be a temperature shift of about 0.5 degree in centigrade. And sometimes if that shift is smaller, or if her temperatures are generally lower than average, the likelihood is that she's got adrenal issues.
Yeah, which is, I mean, we see this so much in the vegan world, right? Not giving adrenal issues. These are directly yeah, exactly, which are directly connected to also nutrient deficiencies, right? Like iodine. You need iodine you need iodine to grow a healthy nervous system, but also you need that for fertility. It's crazy, like with animals, with livestock, ranchers know that there are certain areas where, if you live high in the mountains, you're going to have low iodine levels in the soil. So it's important to give, sometimes iodized salt to animals. And if cattle have fertility issues in the mountainous regions where we live, everybody knows you give them a shot with iodine and zinc and calcium, and then their fertility improves. So, I mean, but with humans, we're so baffled. Why aren't women able to conceive? Oh, by the way, the WHO says you should all be on a vegan diet because it's going to stop climate change and cholesterol.
Yep. So, that was something I saw a lot. Vegan women seem to have generally lower temperatures than the meat-eating women that I worked with, and I do think, and when you see it happen, sometimes they'll still get pregnant, but then they'll get to between 4 and 6 weeks and they'll have a miscarriage, and that's because their adrenals are not able to support the production of the placenta, and the hormones drop off, and they lose their baby. Yeah.
And is this common in the vegan world? How common is this in the vegan world?
So common. So common.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when I was going through my miscarriages, like, I would always go, there's something wrong with me that I can't do it. And the doctors would be like, oh, well, we don't know why it happens. And it's not your fault. It just happens sometimes. But as it, 2, 3, 4 times it happened. And I start to go back to my education in fertility, and it was my fault because I wasn't eating the right diet, and I see it happen to other people, and all I can do is give the advice of like you need to drink raw milk, you need to eat meat, and that's how you're going to be able to have a pregnancy. So many women that I've known, you ask that are ex-vegans, and you ask them why they're an ex-vegan, they say, oh, because I had a miscarriage. So common.
Wow.
So common.
Wow. A mother's instinct too. It's like, well, hey, something's not right here. But I can't imagine, I can't imagine having a miscarriage because I'm not a woman, but having a miscarriage as a vegan, knowing that subconsciously you've always got, vegans have this like crazy, I mean, it's a veganism, no offense to our vegan viewers out there, but like you become actually like, it's like a mental illness kind of in a way, because you're having to constantly hype yourself up to stay in this mode. You're having to, they're trying to convince everyone around them that they're okay. Right. Just like with, the anorexia nervosa and bulimia and stuff, it's always like this outward show is part of the disorder of, no, I'm normal. I'm healthy. I'm good. Look at me. It's like veganism fits into, categorically, it is an eating disorder, which is a mental illness. But to be vegan, have a miscarriage, and not have your conscience pop up and be like, hey, something's up here. The simplest thing to do is just not be vegan. Like try not being vegan and see if you get, but I guess priorities, right? I mean, it's such a religion to people. They literally will sacrifice human life, the lives of unborn children, the lives of their living children, as well, the health of their children, to maintain the delusion that, veganism's good. This is safe for all stages of life, as the American Dietetics Association
Absolutely
says.
Not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. I don't know if you talked on your channel before about how like that study is just a classic example of nepotism. Like,
yeah, we have talked about the American Dietetics Association. Yeah, it's a joke. It's a house of cards. There's so many ways to tackle and debunk that, but none of those were from actual observational studies, right? It's just pure theoretical. It's a theoretical house of cards based on false epidemiology, completely junk science.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've seen the fertility issues that women have, and you've measured and you've seen the adrenal fatigue issues that seem to be associated with those fertility issues. Have you seen that corrected? Have you seen that improved through any, maybe the advice that you've given?
Yep, instantly. Well, in my own experience, within a month and a half of starting to eat meat, I found out I was pregnant, and I carried, after 4 miscarriages, I carried that baby to term, and she was born in April 2020.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I've also seen that happen with women that I've worked with that have had miscarriages. Start eating raw dairy in particular. I like to push because dairy has so much in it, vitamin K2, like so much that you need to have a healthy pregnancy. Yeah.
So for pregnancies, I mean, even going beyond the vegan issues, when you're working with women, what type of foods, what type of nutritional practices do you recommend for fertility, and then also for, maintaining the pregnancy and bringing it full term?
These days, a meat-based diet. yeah, absolutely a meat-based diet. As I said, raw dairy is really great. Just anything that has like a broad spectrum of those dense nutrients that you need. Anything that's gonna like promote you to hold weight, because you do need the extra fat to support a healthy pregnancy and to breastfeed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, raw dairy, cottage cheese is really great. They've done lots of studies to see that mothers who eat probiotics during pregnancy have children with healthier gut microbiomes. So yeah, organ meats, absolutely organ meat. So many women end up being iron deficient during pregnancy, having anemia.
Yep.
So that liver, you know, I know dietary recommendations during pregnancy say to limit liver.
Isn't that funny? And also fish. No, they say fish, or they say sushi maybe, or shellfish. I feel like they say shellfish probably. A lot of the foods that. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say no. They say no raw fish, no shellfish.
Okay.
Tuna you should limit to once a week. But they say like fish in general, you shouldn't be having it too often because of aluminium and mercury in the fish. I ate salmon every day when I was pregnant.
Did you crave it, or did you just know that it was good for the pregnancy?
I absolutely craved it. It was I think I'd eaten vegan for so long. I'm sure my fat ratios were just completely out of whack. Too many omega-6 and not enough omega-3s. So I ate eggs and salmon every day for breakfast, and sometimes I'd add a bit of liver in that when I fancied it. And then what was I eating for lunch? Lunch was generally like a little bit of veg and like a steak or, you know, like some mince or something like that. And then supper was whatever, lamb, mince, pork crackling, you know, like whatever.
Nice. So really consistent. Like it sounds like you're some women during pregnancy, like certain foods that they normally love, they can't even think about them. They're just like, oh, I can't stand meat during my pregnancies. It's a funny thing.
Yeah. Generally though, you can find something that's nutrient dense that they do want to eat. The funny thing is though, a lot of vegan women, their bodies seem to reject fruits and vegetables, and all they want is meat.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot as well. And obviously they have these great emotional turmoils over it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's wild. So pregnancy, postnatal, you mentioned certain hormone imbalances and stuff that would affect. Let's get a little bit into the pregnancy and postnatal period and like recovering, because a lot of women forget about the female bodies. It's incredible. The resilience of women is just amazing. The ability to bounce back after such a just crazy traumatic growth. Like, it's not traumatic, but it's like when you look at it from the outside, it's like the way that their womb expands for 9.5 months, and then all of a sudden this baby comes out, and their bodies are incredible. So what have you noticed as far as recovery goes, hormone imbalance and whatnot, among vegan and vegetarian women that you've worked with as a doula?
So during pregnancy, there are a lot of warning signs that something might be a little bit off, but then we're told that these are just normal pregnancy symptoms. So like if a mother is experiencing fatigue, particularly when she's getting into the second trimester, there's likely something hormonally or nutritionally off that she's feeling that exhausted. So it might be iron deficiency, anemia, but it can be just something as simple as her hormones are not as high as they should be. So like when you're pregnant, your estrogen and progesterone should be like crazy high, and that is what's causing morning sickness. So in the first trimester of pregnancy, as your hormones are starting to rise, it's quite complicated. So rising hormones can sort of fuel insulin resistance, and then if you're not eating enough nutrient dense foods, that insulin sensitivity will sort of fuel those feelings of nausea. So it's a cycle. And I see if you're not experiencing some level of nausea, like I'm not saying that women should be like hurling their guts out all the time, but you want to be feeling fluctuations in your hormones as they rise. And vegan women, I seem to see a lot of them going in one direction or the other, either like having no sickness whatsoever, which is in my first pregnancy, I never experienced sickness. So that's kind of a sign that your hormones aren't rising fast enough at the level they should be. Or they have HG, hyperemesis gravidarum, which is they have too much sickness. And that's associated with B vitamin deficiencies.
Which is inherent to veganism. It's like something that you notice first.
Yeah. So these are very like subtle warning signs that I think a lot of people write off as being just part of pregnancy. They can be really easy to ignore, but when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's a sign that something's not right. Yeah.
And so these hormonal imbalances, will they affect the recovery after birth? I mean, the hormonal imbalances, nutrient deficiencies, like, I mean, it seems you see a lot of vegan athletes getting these injuries. They never recover from the injuries. And then they give up the ghost. They leave veganism because they can't recover. You see people's, adults' teeth cracking. They're like, what the heck's wrong? Why are my teeth falling out? I'm like, thought I was healthy. So there is obviously the degeneration that comes with nutrient deficiencies and starvation, which is what veganism is. It's a slow, long, protracted starvation. And yeah, I could imagine that a recovery after birth would probably be affected by nutrient deficiencies. What have you seen?
Yeah, crazy stuff. Women that have actually lost weight during pregnancy. So instead of like once they've had the baby and they've lost the baby weight, and then they get on the scale, and this actually happened to me. I got on the scale and I was like, whoa, I'm not even 8 stone anymore. And then adrenal issues, people who have adrenal fatigue. Obviously it's a big drain on the adrenals to have a baby, because it's your hormonal system is just pumping out so much to get the hormones to work, and it's like the equivalent of running a marathon. It is. And if you're healthy, that's fine, but if you're not healthy, your body will pay for it when you finish. And I see.
Well, not to mention, like, post-birth, you're not sleeping for the first how many months, depending on how well your child sleeps. Like, goodbye to proper sleep. So your adrenals are going nuts.
Yeah,
postnatal.
absolutely nuts. And I've seen women who are vegan just go for years with adrenal fatigue, and it's just not getting better. It's just not getting better. And they have the dark rings around their eyes, and they're the mom that they can't do anything without 6 cups of coffee in the morning, and they're just abusing themselves.
That's so sad.
And then the other thing I see that's concerning is they a lot of women don't seem to recover from the injuries of birth. So, for instance, perineal tears. The tissues just can heal very slowly, or heal with a lot of scar tissue. And I mean, that happens sometimes anyway. So people might say, oh, that's just part of childbirth. But I've just got a hunch that it happens a little bit more often.
Yeah, it would make sense, right? I mean, just considering like cholesterol's vital role in reparative processes in the body, right? I mean, cholesterol gets blamed for all sorts of negative things like heart disease, which is, patently false. Cholesterol doesn't cause disease in the body. It's present in the body when there is arterial tearing in the arterial wall, which happens due to inflammatory processes like high hemoglobin A1C. Chronically high blood glucose levels will cause damage to the artery lining. Cholesterol goes in there and, like a scab, repairs that. So animal foods are important, not just for nutrients like iodine, creatine, choline, vitamin B12, all these vitamins and minerals that you're not going to be receiving if you're on a vegan diet. But also, like, cholesterol is not bad for your health. And we were talking about fertility earlier. Cholesterol is the building block of your sex steroid hormones. Your body's not going to repair itself if you don't have sufficient progesterone. You will not be able to conceive or have energy if you don't have sufficient testosterone, or if your sex steroid hormones are not right. So yeah, it totally makes sense that healing would happen slower because you're starving. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember after my first pregnancy thinking I recovered so well, and I kind of did. You know, one of the benefits of having a baby at home is that you have lower risk of tears and traumas. So I did recover pretty quickly, but after my second baby, it was just like, I was like, whoa, this is actually what it feels like to recover quickly.
Nice. Yeah. Right on. So what about babies, vegan children, vegan babies? I mean, you probably had contact with a lot of vegan families. I mean, we talked about your own family and your story there, but you know, we can get a little bit more into your family if you want to share anything more about things you've seen there. But also, you know, with people you've worked with, what have you noticed about you know, raising vegan children? Is this a good idea? Is it truly safe for all stages of life, as the American Dietetics Association so criminally states? Or should vegan families maybe reconsider their decisions to raise their children vegan?
Yeah, I am a bit sympathetic because I've done it, but I do see it as child abuse now. And that's not like a judgment on parents, because when you say child abuse, I think people think of like someone is actually hitting a child, or, you know, like active abuse. But
Hey, I think giving kids iPads is child abuse. You know, I think giving kids iPads, putting kids in public school, these are, I mean, again, some of us have to do this, but
Yeah,
you don't have to be whacking a kid across his face for it to be child abuse.
yeah,
There's other
exactly.
forms.
It can take a very passive form, and I think a lot of vegans genuinely love their children and want the best for their children, but they are mentally ill. I was mentally ill. I had an eating disorder, and you know, it's not healthy for children. They don't do well. A lot of vegan women do commit to breastfeeding, particularly in the whole foods vegan movements and the raw vegan movements. So that, I guess that's good. It could be argued that the breast milk is not as good as it should be, but at least
Right. How is it going to have iodine or vitamin B12, right? I mean, it's definitely going to be insufficient. And I think there have been studies on the, you know, vegan breastfed children, or maybe some cases where, you know, major nutrient deficiencies and starvation in children whose mothers were vegan. Yeah, I mean, you know, at least they're giving them that animal food. At least they'll admit that animal food, because they believe, vegans will tell you humans are just animals too. And vegans are fine. Most vegans are okay with other animals eating other animals. The ones that are consistent maybe take a different route. But yeah, I'm glad some of them are okay with that animal food. Exploitation of women for for their children.
Yeah, yeah. But I do see a lot of vegan mothers that struggle to produce enough milk. So I think that if you're struggling to produce enough milk, that's a sign that you've got some hormonal issues that and malnutrition. Yeah. I mean, there are some vegan women that say they have tons of milk, but then I know, this is my theory, right? Because this is my own experience. When I, with my first pregnancy, I actually had oversupply, but it was very watery, and I actually had frozen breast milk from my first child, and then when I had my second, I unfroze it and I compared it, and there was just like so much more fat. It was like, when I was eating animal products, it was just like dense, it was thicker, and there was lots of fat on top. And
Wow.
when the milk from when I was vegan, it was like really watery and like kind of greenish in color, like clear green.
Green
It was just
juice.
like water, basically. So yeah,
You became a green star. You became a green juice making, a green juice pumper. That's funny.
yeah. I think obviously there's plenty of water in plant foods, and so maybe it's just that water coming through your breast milk. But yeah,
Mostly water and plant foods, water and fiber.
Yeah. So that was interesting to see, and I do sometimes I have counseled people when they're breastfeeding it and struggling with that, and get them to have some raw dairy or some organ meat, and their supply will immediately correct itself.
Wow. Now, I mean, you mentioned you counseling people and having people reach out to you. If there are like maybe some vegans in the crowd watching right now, or former vegans, is there anywhere that they can reach you? If they do want to, maybe get in touch with you, share their stories, or maybe just, talk to you, or, seek some advice and counseling from you. Is there anywhere that they can look?
Yeah.
Where they can...
I have got social media pages. I'm not super active on them. Email is the best way. So my email address is fruitfulmotherhood@gmail.com.
Nice. Fruitful Motherhood.
Yeah.
Is that a rollover email from the vegan days?
It's funny because I picked that name when I was raw, and so a lot of people think that it's about fruit, but I chose the word fruitful because it's biblical, and it's about the abundant life of parenting, and what a gift it is from God to be a parent.
Nice. Wow. So even through the vegan phase, the raw vegan phase, all of the new age stuff that you see in the doula world, like you still maintain your faith in God. Was there a period where you kind of went more new age, or?
I got into I really got into new age stuff for a while, but I think God's always there when you're ready to come back to him.
Yeah, especially when you're struggling, right?
Yeah, he's always there when you're struggling.
That's beautiful. Yeah, praise God. Awesome. Yeah, it's so late where you're at. I got so many questions I'd ask you. But it's you guys, she's over in the UK, so she's actually 5 hours ahead of me. It is is it 1:30 in the morning there?
1:30, yeah.
It's
I'm
1:30.
surprised my daughter's still asleep. I'm surprised my youngest is still asleep, because she's not been, she doesn't really sleep without me.
She's gonna be poking you awake in the morning, and you're gonna be trying to sleep in. She'll be jumping all over you. Mama, wake up! Mama, wake up! Wow. So let's wrap it up. Let's let you get to bed. It's been awesome. I'd love to have you on again, and talk a little bit about what's been going on in the medical system lately, childbirth, raising children in the flu world order. I really appreciate you guys. If you want to reach out to Lydia here, again, the email was fruitfulmotherhood@gmail.com. And anything else that we didn't hit on that you really wanted to talk about, Lydia, or any other thoughts that come to mind that you'd like to share with the audience about veganism, raising children, pregnancy, fertility, any of the topics we talked about?
I think becoming a parent is like such a magical thing, no matter where you're coming from, and everyone wants the best for the children. So I would encourage, like, if you're vegan, just explore options. Like, don't be tied to the dogma, and just investigate other ideas and put your kids first. I put my kid first, and she's turning around. So, like, if you're doing veganism with your kids and you're not getting the results you want, don't be tied to it. Reach out to people who are ex-vegan, or talk to a nutritionist. Figure it out, find a way to make them better. Yeah.
Awesome. Lydia, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And everybody who's watching, I hope you guys got something good out of this. Make sure to share the videos, like the videos, share them with your vegan friends and family. I mean, I think this is a good one to share with vegans that are on on the fence, and all vegans are on the fence. Every one of them has doubts, and every one of them understands that what they're doing is something that is new, something that is risky. And understanding the risks of especially vegan pregnancy, if you're trying to raise children vegan, this is not the best way, and you can absolutely do damage and harm. And there is a reason that there are so many former vegans out there telling you guys that animal foods are not bad for you. Animal foods, in fact, are necessary. So, yeah, Lydia, thanks for coming on. Everybody who's watching, thanks for watching. And I'll see you guys next time. We are signing out.